Well, hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Live at 5. Live at 5 is a show that I do every day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 5 p.m. on my main channel. On Fridays, we go over to my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke for happy hour. On Saturdays, I might do Sassy Saturday. I might do something else. You just got to keep your eye on the announcements for if we have a Sassy Saturday stream to engage in some of that more, well, the dramatic parts of YouTube. And on Sunday, we get up and do it all over again. Well, guys, I am so excited about the chat we've got coming up today. But before I bring on my illustrious guest, I just want to remind everyone that today is the day, guys. Today is the day that my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life, is finally here. It is finally getting delivered. You can get your hardcover copy today. You can get your print copy today, or your Kindle copy today. We're still working on the audiobook. There's technical difficulties. We're fixing it. It's going to be much better when it comes back. It will be available sometime soon, but I just want to make sure everyone knows that those are available right now. I'm super excited. I know that people in the chat are already getting their copies of the book. People are already reading them. People are already leaving me reviews on Amazon. If you're reading the book and you're enjoying the book, please leave me a 5-star review on Amazon. If you don't enjoy the book, don't leave any review. Just don't worry about it. But if you do enjoy the book, all reviews are helpful and they really do make a difference in the sales and all that good stuff. And of course, you get access to special benefits and perks when you order the book. Now, if you don't want to order it on Amazon, that's totally okay. What you want to do is head over to activelyunwoke.com, and right on the button, there are some non-Amazon options that you can order from. So whatever is clever, whatever works for you. But I will be having a book club coming up for people who order the book. Now, don't pay attention to the copy on this page yet. I'm going to be extending the deadline to sign up for the book club because of our little snafu with our quality control of the audiobook. So I'm going to be extending the deadline to sign up for the exclusive Actively Unwoke book club. If you've ordered the book and you would like to join a private exclusive book club with me, it's in 3 parts because there's 3 sections of the book. So we're going to talk about all 3 sections. What you need to do is forward your receipts to the book to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to be signed up for my locals or anything like that. Just forward your receipt to the email address and that will get you signed up for the exclusive book club. And I will be sending out more information on that soon. I am waiting on information from my publisher about when the audiobook is going to be re-recorded. So I'm not sure what's going on there yet. And so I'm really kind of waiting on that information before I make any final determination. But you can just get signed up on the list now, and so you'll be ready to go. The other thing I want you to know about is that if you are an annual member in my locals community, you will be able to request a free customized autographed book plate from me to put inside your version of the book. I'll put your name on it. If you have a specific message you want me to write, you can tell me that. If you want me to write a message for a friend that you are gifting the book to, you can tell me that. If you don't tell me what to write, you're leaving me up to my own devices, and that may or may not work out for you depending on how I'm feeling on any given moment, but I will try my best to write a very nice message. The way you take advantage of that, this is exclusively for annual members in my locals. I'll tell you how to join that in a sec. What you need to do is send your receipt and the message you would like to locals@activelyunwoke.com, and that will get you all set up there. This image is also pinned to the top of my locals community right now, so that if you forget this information, it's right there in locals. Now, how do you get into my locals community? I'm glad you asked. What you need to do to join my locals is to head over to kb.locals.com. You can join for free there. But if you do want to support my work and help me out, because I got news for you guys, YouTube don't pay the bills. My work is only made possible because of my locals community. This is the God's honest truth. Actively Unwoke would never have gotten written without the support of my locals community, because what my local supporters do is they free up my time to be able to focus on woke stuff. So I'm not doing consulting and assessments and corporate training. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the biggest challenge in fighting back against the woke is time. And so the more time I have to be focused on this stuff, the more I can do for you guys in terms of creating content. If you would like to become a member, head over to kb.locals.com/support. Let me get my ticker. There it is. You can join for $5 a month, so less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You can join for $50 a year, which not only gets you 2 months for free, but will also get you that free customized autographed book plate for your book. You can also make a one-time gift if you're feeling generous. And of course, I appreciate all of your help and all of your support. And you get lots of exclusive perks. And there's more information about locals in that. All right. Let's bring on our guest. Without further ado, I'm so excited, and I want to send a big shout out and thank you to Miss Gabrielle Clark for making the introduction to my guest that I'm bringing on today. Guys, I'm a little bit fascinated with feminism. I've never considered myself a feminist myself. I don't really understand all the different types of feminism, but when I do think of feminism with kind of like the old school variety is just like badass boss women who will not be told what to do. And I have a feeling that I have on my channel today one of those badass boss women. Welcome Jennifer Thomas to my channel. And Jennifer is a radical feminist, and she's going to explain to us what that means. Welcome, Jennifer.
TERF's up. Well, I'm very pleased to be, the first of your TERF Tuesday, and radical feminism. Radical in front of feminism is referring to the root. Radical meaning the root of our oppression, of women's oppression, and for me, it's pretty simple. The root of our oppression is that we are physically weaker than men. It doesn't really need that much explanation. The radical feminists believe that, basically probably what most of your listeners believe, where, porn has a negative effect on women. Women's rights are based in their sex. Motherhood is an exclusive female status. Physical and reproductive integrity is, the utmost importance for women. Along with porn and, all the other, we do not believe in surrogacy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this sex work is not on our agenda. We believe that prostituted women are in a position where they're being manipulated in order to pay the bills, and most prostituted women are not these upper high echelon call girls that are all this money. And now we have new attacks via the web, and radical feminists are also taking up children's rights, because there's just no protection for them. So I think if our stance on abortion is pro-choice, right? So if you're pro-choice, you probably fall into the category of a TERF. I think most people, most men and women.
Wait, I'm a TERF? I just learned I'm a TERF? Excellent.
Yeah, most men and women, on the moderate, like a moderate left, even moderate right, are TERFs. There might be some argument about, abortion rights, but if you kind of hit most of the rights that the radical feminists, or the analysis, okay, radical feminism is an analysis.
Okay.
Most of it is proven with cited, like it's cited that porn it affects women negatively, right? And there's there's a lot of analysis, and if you want, I'll send you the encyclopedia, which is
Yeah, that might be. So I want to make clear to everyone. So I actually don't mind porn. So you might have to convince me on that one. I'm open to being convinced. But I do kind of just want to just approach this conversation with an open mind, where like I don't want to pass any judgment on any views at all. I just kind of want to understand more about the ideology. And I definitely want to get into some of the details that you're talking about. But I want to start with this name, this I guess this term TERF. So when I've heard the term TERF thrown around, I've usually it's thrown around as like an insult, something that's coming from like the woke left against anyone who doesn't want to sleep with like a trans person or something like that. Like, what does the term TERF mean to you? And it kind of seems like you guys are trying to like reappropriate the term TERF to have it be like you're taking back the term. Tell me more about this.
Well, I think it's one of the best names they gave us. I mean, it's trans exclusionary radical feminist. I mean, I am trans exclusionary. I don't believe there is such a thing as trans. I think
Mhm.
the made up word to, indoctrinate people into an ideology that requires a religious sacrifice of body parts. I mean, so like
Okay.
not it's not dishonest to call me a TERF. I mean, I don't believe trans exists. I don't believe people can change sex. I believe there's people. I don't even necessarily believe in gender dysphoria. I mean, I think that's bullshit too. I think it's body dysmorphia, and we've seen it before. And now we're seeing, a 4,000% increase in females and girls. Um, this doesn't explain this isn't gender dysphoria. This is opt out. This is social contagion. It has multiple layers of, money behind it, and, autogynephilic men, and then children that are victims. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, call me a TERF. Fine. I'm fine with that.
Now, if you're encountering like a trans person, and I'm honestly just coming from a place of like total ignorance about this, but like with me with trans people, like I don't really care if someone chooses to be trans. I kind of feel like it's none of my business. Like, live your best life. I hope you're happy. I don't want kids being medically transitioned, but I don't really care if they're like if they want to wear baggy clothes and cut their hair. Like, I kind of get again, I view it as like no harm, no foul. I was a tomboy growing up, so whatever. I grew out of it. But like if you encounter like a trans person, will you use their pronouns, or how do you approach that
No,
type of relationship?
I will not use somebody's pronouns that aren't what I am perceiving. I
Okay.
think that's a free speech violation. I think pronouns in schools are grooming because as adults we model behavior, and
Mhm.
when your teacher is gaslighting you before your very eyes, that is grooming. So no, I don't respect pronouns. I do have a live and let live philosophy. Um, until live and let live started killing us, really. I mean, started, really attacking women's rights, and the autonomy of our bodies, and grooming children and indoctrinating children. I mean, we were all sort of at this stage of live and let live back in the 80s and 90s, and then
Mhm.
they made moves to, encroach on, women's rights. I mean, the bathroom thing is the first thing that I would like to, they got their foot in the door with the bathroom, and I feel like the bathroom is where we have to stop them. This is unacceptable that women have no privacy when they're in a state of undress. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not, a ridiculous, ask to
Mhm.
want segregated spaces when you're out in public and you have your pants down. Okay, like it, and the way that they're using children in order to, um affect affect this, and um but like the propaganda bubble that's around it, and how we were sort of conditioned for it, I think is, what we probably are going to need to break. So I call it the empathy trap.
Mhm.
And I'm old enough to kind of have registered some of the propaganda. Like, I made a mental note in the filing cabinet, and and I mean, I talk about this as the first time I really registered was Ally McBeal with the unisex bathroom where nothing ever happened, and it's a dancing baby in there, and there's no sexual assault, right? So they're presenting it,
Wow. Yeah, that was in college for me. Yeah. Yeah.
presenting this to us as safe, and then and we're just watching. It's not like it's happening in your bathroom at school or whatever. And then we had Boys Don't Cry, which was, the side of
Mhm.
a female character getting abused because she was basically lying about which sex she was. Um so the empathy was, like, the female is weaker, we're gonna, feel sorry, this is horrible. So they came at us with that. And then Orange is the New Black, where the only man is like this harmless hairdresser, and the women are ultra violent. Um,
Mhm.
and then we have Jazz, where,
Yeah.
we're all just kind of going along to get along. Jazz is on after Dance Moms, like, let's just whatever, like, yeah, it's fine. And that was actually, Jazz was the first um time where I myself got in trouble with my husband because because I was watching Dance Moms with my daughter, and we kind of left the TV on and we were talking, and we're half watching it, and my husband came home and he had a fit. He was like, "What are you watching?"
Really?
Yeah, like, you are watching this kid. They're gonna, castrate him. And it sort of, knocked me out of it. Like, wait, yeah, you're right. That's what I'm watching, and but I was in this lull of saccharine, propaganda, just kind of in a fog, not really, because I'm busy. I was a Girl Scout mom.
Oh,
I'm busy,
totally.
all kinds of stuff. I'm not, like, I'm just sort of like, yeah, yeah, that's going on, that's going on. So then after that, I was like, wow, this is pretty bad. It's on, TV, that, we're all just watching this. This is terrible, right? But
Hmm.
I still wasn't, you know, politically active. And then a bunch of things happened where I went into a school and put in a nutrition program, and then COVID, and then I lived in a town where there was a polluter that we had to close. So then I got familiar with activism. So
Mm.
I learned the ropes with Jennings. It was the town that was polluting our air, and that we did end up closing it. I lived in a suburb of Chicago, and we did end up using the media and getting so much media attention that the we lost the case in court, but they ended up closing because of public pressure. So
Hmm.
that I had my feet wet with, activism there. And when Biden got elected, I knew. I mean, he had said he was gonna
Oh yeah, he was blatant about it. Yeah.
yeah, I knew. So the next day I got on Twitter. And at that point, I didn't know anyone, I didn't know any other radical feminists. I just, that was I, looked over all the feminists, the choices, and I picked radical because that aligned with my belief system. And I had heard Megan Murphy got booted from Twitter. So I knew there was a group there. So I just I just friended everybody that had adult human female in their.
I love it. You guys got a little tribe too. There are so many people in the chat right now. I was not expecting the TERFs to come out in full force.
Oh yeah. And I, created, I sort of like entered the community. Now, when you enter that community, you don't really know where to start because there's so many different category hydras of this head coming at you. There's the bathroom issue. There's, boys identifying as women in sports. There's the prison issue where men convicted rapists are being put in prison with women. I mean, if that's not state sanctioned rape, I don't know what is.
That's one of the craziest things to me. That's like one of the because I got to admit, like you know I first of all, I'm an avid Dance Moms fan, so I totally understand Dance Moms going into Jazz Jennings, and I have to admit, like before, so I was a Democrat for 20 years before I finally kind of like woke up and like red pilled in like late 2019, early 2020, and started realizing how much I had been lied to. And so, but like I had watched Jazz Jennings before that. I think I'd maybe watched like the first two seasons, and I gotta admit, I was kind of like, this is a little weird and creepy that this family has just commodified their entire family, and especially this one child, and it had been doing it for a while. But I was also kind of like, they all seem kind of happy. She seems like, I don't know what was like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I was kind of like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something. I was uncomfortable with the medical intervention, but I was like, if it's helping her to, and I will use the pronouns just to, and no shade to anyone who won't. I don't really care. But like there was something to me that I was like, if it makes her happy, then I guess I should be okay with it. I also have a friend that has basically like an obviously trans child. like obviously, like everyone knew that this child was going to transition from female to male at some point, just because it was just like it was like all like always looked like a boy, it was always acting like a boy, and it eventually came out as trans around like 16, 17 years old. And so I was kind of looking at it from that perspective, thinking, maybe there really are cases where people really do know that young, and it's just something has, like, the wiring has gotten mixed up or something. But I was also never really in favor of medical transition again before you're 18, because I also think that it's just rife for error. So, I think that there is something to be said for the slippery slope in this circumstance, because, like, as you described, like, it starts off with Ally McBeal, and all of a sudden we have men in women's prisons, and that's where I started to get kind of really uncomfortable with the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, with the children, I mean, it really hit the white middle class to upper class. All right.
Mhm.
This trans explosion, right? And I mean, I'm fortunately was born in the 70s, and I saw a world before social media, and trans wasn't a thing, not for
Mhm.
girls. There were very few that you'd hear, way, and, some story that you'd hear, where a guy wanted to become, wanted to have surgery and all that stuff. But it was very rare. So, yeah. So now I've witnessed a phenomenon where my family member has a daughter that is, claiming non-binary. Um,
Mm. I don't think that's a real thing.
yeah. My other family member has a child that is male to female, or female to male. I'm sorry, female to male. And
Mhm.
and it's funny because my nephew was saying, "Well, we always knew she was a boy." And I looked at him. I said, "Are you like, you seriously believe what you just said? You always knew she was a boy?" Okay, just grammatic. Okay, grammatically, that's nonsense. And my neighbor's kid, my sister's boyfriend's son.
Mhm.
But now I'm just, a suburban mom, and I know 4 kids that have transed.
And
Um,
and I agree with you. I think, like, I think that it's being and this is where I have mixed feelings about it, because, like, part of me is like, I just want kids to be left alone, to be able to grow into whoever they are, and whoever that is. I think that that's great. But the other part of me is watching so many kids, and it especially does bother. I've thought very extensively about this, and I'm like, if I had grown up today, I am absolutely positive that I would have been transitioned to a boy. Like 100% positive I would have been transitioned, and that gives me pause.
yeah, I mean, and there's many, many lesbians and gay kids and adults that say that, they repeat that. Hey, if I was born in this time, I totally would. I mean, I liked climbing trees. I like, because it's all these stereotypical, the stereotypes are being like played out with surgery and um, experimental drugs, basically. Um,
Right.
and that shouldn't be happening. I mean, we should have responsible doctors, but it's because there's so many layers to this. It's a billion-dollar industry. We have a group of, autogynephilic men, autogynephiles, that are kind of running the show on this, and they're billionaires. They have money. They can push this top down. And so we have to, and their ultimate goal is to break up the family. I mean, this is
Yes.
this is the thing with gender ideology. It appears like they're going after the women and the children, when in reality, the pronouns, right, where you're saying is capitulation of speech. It's not just, you know, it's not just your decision to go along with someone's pronoun. If you're at work, you are literally being compelled to go along with something you don't believe. That's a freedom of speech issue where, I mean, that affects men, that affects everybody.
Mhm.
And also the documentation, the reporting, the crime statistics analysis, they are reporting men's crimes as women's. And I mean, they're just like,
Huh.
literally can do anything. So, I mean, and that's a free speech issue where, like, we want accurate accurate records, accurate, stories in our media. Our freedom of the press is being, decimated because they are saying that, this 40-year-old, I mean, something happened last night with the Barbie Kardashian or whatever. Oh, no, it was in Detroit, where this man who, has the identity, it's just an identity, and, furries are identities, right? Like
Yeah, well, in
all the
theory.
identities, but it's a man, and he killed his, I think, boyfriend. I can't remember. He killed two people, and they reported it as a she, and just like kept going with this facade that this is a woman. And like this is happening over and over and over. I mean, like it's in all the newspapers. The Washington Post was calling Will Thomas she. And then,
Wow.
because I was in the Washington Post for protesting at Sheer Pool. It was I did 3 protests with Will Thomas, and the first article that, and we were happy to get an article, right? But it's totally swayed to their propaganda. They had, I think, somebody at the paper snuck in where they used the correct pronouns, and within 2 hours they edited it and changed it.
Here, I just want to bring up this picture of you, you protesting. Oh, that's not the one I want. That's the one I want right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just, I had moved from Chicago to Pennsylvania, and I thought, oh, I'm in Pennsylvania. There is no way I am not going to protest this. And that's from Red Femme Rebellion. That's a group that Joy Jordan and I started. And nobody else was available that day, so we just went and did it ourselves. I mean, it was a really fun day. We were out there for about 5 hours. It's cold, but there was so much media there, so we were having a ball.
How did they respond to you guys?
We had this stand up. What, women stand up, stand up for women, even when they're swimming. Women, right? So that we were having fun with them, and we did get, probably 6 or 7 interviews. The Washington Post was the only one that actually produced a story. That happens a lot, where they'll interview you and they get, slammed by their editors. They can't, put this horrible, honest truth out. So you end up doing quite a few interviews, but that one I was surprised we got in. And then we went again to protest Will Thomas, and that protest was specifically geared towards the women. I knew he wasn't going to be at the Westchester event. That's the second event. I wanted to let the women know that we were there to support them if they wanted to speak out, because it is a process of having seen people. Right? Think about those young women had been through the season, the whole year. No protesters were out there. We were the first ones that they saw. So it was like little baby steps of courage for them, getting closer and closer. Like, yeah, okay, we have support. We can see it. Yeah, we might have saw support on the internet, but now we're in person, live, seeing people out there with signs. That shows them, for every, probably one person that shows up, there's thousands of people that are, supporting them. And then the parents got to see that. And then we handed out, Title IX little cards on, like, if you don't report, if you work for the university and you don't report sexual harassment, you are guilty of sexual harassment. So we handed those out to all the administrators and anybody that we could find that, was in charge at the schools. So to give them sort of a warning. And then the last protest was the big one. And Posey showed up with Posey Parker. She's the one that said, if you're not, I'm not a vet.
Oh, yes.
I'm not
Yeah.
what a dog is. So, and that the reason why I wanted to focus on that particular issue was not because it's the most dire issue, because the most dire issue is the children, was because I wanted to see if we could, with exposure like that, if we could get men to come in sort of on a joke, right? Because they like to joke about that stuff, and it is totally ridiculous, but and that did work, right? So now I feel like, after Will Thomas, after that fiasco, that was, I mean, I was there. It was like, what did I say? It was like the public um rape of consent. That's what it felt like,
Wow.
because nobody in the audience, everybody was like watching a train wreck. Yeah, everybody was just like really just kind of watching and not knowing how to react. And that's what it felt like, the public rape of consent. So we have this exposure with that. Um, and I really felt like we were moving in the right direction. And now, of course, they had that Roe v. Wade in their back pocket. So they're
Oh
going to,
God. Well,
yeah,
we can definitely talk about that. I definitely have opinions on that whole fiasco that I've been really pissing off my conservative audience with for the last week, but we can get into that. I just want to welcome Skidmark to the channel as a new member. I appreciate the support. Guys, please mount that like button if you are enjoying the conversation so far. And I just want to note, and I kind of have to, I'm forced into a little bit of a position on YouTube with this stuff. I have to play devil's advocate with some of the things. So just for clarification, we're talking about Leah Thomas, and I'm going to use she. You call her Will Thomas, and you're going to use he. And I just need to provide that counterbalance. Otherwise, YouTube might get me a strike. I again like, and I don't really care about any of this stuff, but I have to play YouTube's game because I have a show later, and I don't want to get a strike. Um, so like I'm fascinated by this. What you said, like what like the public rape of consent. Is that the phrase that you use? Like
yes.
what a phrase. And I think that's the first time I feel like I've really heard a descriptor of what it must have been like to be in that arena when, again, I'm going to say Leah Thomas won. Because for me, like, even thinking about this stuff, you know as much as I don't care if people are trans, the trans men or the trans women in women's sports thing really does bother me because it's just a fundamental issue of fairness. And it kind of felt like when I heard that she had won, for me it was like just a sinking feeling of, oh, here we go. It's over for women's sports now, perpetually, forever. And I kind of had hope with the Olympics. I had really hoped that that trans weightlifter from New Zealand would have won the gold medal at the Olympics, only because I kind of thought that if it's on the world stage and it is so obvious that you have a trans woman on the top podium and surrounded by cis women, and like I thought that it would be a moment where it would be so obvious to the world how wrong it is for trans women to compete in women's sports. But then of course the New Zealand weightlifter kind of shit the bed and that didn't work out. But like what was that like for you to be at that meet and to witness that happen? How did that feel?
It felt horrible. I actually, though, when he won the 500,
Mhm.
um, I guess I had mentally prepared myself for that. It was when he lost that pissed me off. The next day, I was like livid. And I got on the bullhorn and was like, well, I guess Will gets to decide if we get a medal or not. Will, it's all up to Will, and I mean, it just infuriated me that he would throw the race,
I was just
like,
going to ask if you thought he threw it because there was speculation that I'm going to say she again. She threw an earlier race. Like there was a lot of speculation about that.
well, I mean, and this is where the pronoun usage gets very like this is how they're getting in. And I know that you're just saying I have to be,
I have to. I agree with you, but it's like YouTube gets me into this bind where they're like, we will take away your income and screw with your channel endlessly unless you play our game. So
and
it
yeah,
truly is. I have to.
yeah, that's where I say it's not a benign issue. They are they're making you capitulate with a stick. It's not like you have a choice in this, so it's not benign. It's not, oh, I don't really care about like live and let live. Well, yeah, we were doing that. We were doing fine with the live and let live, and now we're getting our Patreons taken away. We're getting, I mean, there's actual penalties to free speech, and it's saying she and I know that I'm not just saying, I'm just going to say how I feel
Oh,
about
totally. And you should. That's why you're here.
saying she, is, it can, everybody is so freaking confused as it is. Why would I use language that's going to confuse people further? Will Thomas is a man swimming in the women's competition. You know, there, when you say it plain and clear, then it's easier to understand that this is not right, right? This is wrong. This is going against women's rights. You know, and we deserve, you know, our own sports. We do a lot for society, right? I mean, women deserve to have safety and, you know, at least like safeguarding in place so that we can function in society. And like, you know, once you capitulate to those pronouns, you lose all that, because you're like, it's the problem with the Equality Act, right? That placing gender identity, you know, prioritizing it before the sex-based rights of women and girls negates them, and then you're just lost in the weeds, right? You can't say anything, and then you get all these women in prison, you get the weird data statistics, everything skewed. I mean, can you imagine what some of the studies are going to look like 5 years from now?
Well, that worries me, and that is something I hadn't actually considered before. With when you pointed out that like crimes that trans women are committing are being reported as women rather than as men, I was like, that was a kind of like an aha moment for me, as a moment that I hadn't considered.
Yeah, women are going to get stricter sentencing because the the you know, the percentages of violent crimes conducted by women are going up because they're men, right? And
Hmm.
and then now we're going to get harsher sentencing because that's how that works, right? And not
Hmm.
to mention, men are raping women in prison. I mean, there's 2 in Illinois, there's 5 in, you know, Washington, there's 7 over here. I mean, it's just, the numbers are just going up. And why are they doing that? Why are
Well,
they
why are they in the prison in the first place?
Yeah, why? Because it is about our rights. You know,
Hmm.
it's about our rights pitted against theirs. And theirs, they have theirs. They're men. They have rights. They don't need reproductive rights. They don't need to come in our bathroom. The reason they want to come in our bathroom is to validate their fetish. You know, otherwise,
Hmm.
we'd have a third bathroom already. You don't think like the major corporations would have given them exactly what they want? If they got together and demanded a third bathroom in every McDonald's, they could put pressure on McDonald's and do that. But they don't
Hmm.
want a bathroom in every McDonald's. They want to come into ours so that they can um, get their, you know, rocks off with their fetish, but also chip away at safeguarding for women and children. I mean,
Hmm.
that's this whole thing. That's what this is about. I mean, and then in front of the men are thinking, well, it's not really about us, but yeah, it's totally about you, because you can't even say what a woman or a man is. So, like, if you don't think it's about you, I'm sorry to say, they're just going through us first. They're going to get to you.
Hmm. I mean, I guess for me, and again, like I'm not unsympathetic to the points that you're making, and some of them are definitely making me think about this in a different way. I really am just a total noob in this whole area. I guess for me, like the reason that I do use pronouns is I agree with you that I'm kind of being forced into it on this particular occasion because of like YouTube guidelines. But also I kind of have always viewed it as just an issue of basic respect and courtesy. And if I want basic respect and courtesy from other people, then I should be willing to show that basic respect and courtesy myself. And as long as I don't feel like someone is trying to use power, like with Blair White, I have no problem calling Blair White she, a because Blair White like looks like a hot girl, but like also because I know Blair White would never try to get power over me. That's not what's going on. I also do understand your perspective though, in that you're saying it's capitulating to this already existing system, and it's like only going to it's only going to escalate what's going on in terms of all the other I guess infractions, for lack of a better term, in terms of like them taking over sports and prisons and all of these other ramifications that maybe you don't consider when you just say, I just like, I'll use pronouns as long as I feel like people aren't using it as a power play, and that's fine with me. But I'm now learning like there are these other ramifications as well that I just hadn't considered before. I do want to take a quick pause because I've got some super chats, and I just want to make sure that we take care of those people. Skidmark says, for your member chat, I actually unsubscribed then resubscribed tonight. Thought I couldn't afford it, but I can. I'm glad to hear that, Skidmarks. TK says, nothing radical about knowing men and women are different sexes. Trans is not a sex. No man is a she. No woman has a penis ever. I certainly understand that perspective. I do have a little bit of a hard time when I hear that women have penises. That's a new one for me. And let's see, I had a couple other ones. Skid Marks also said, I missed the start. If it's not a problem, can you introduce your guest? If it is, don't worry. Well, we did a little bit of an intro at the beginning, Skid Marks, but I'm sure Jennifer will be able to elaborate on some of the great activism she's doing, because I know that, the activism is definitely a point that we want to touch on. And then AD says, my pronouns are me, myself, and I. We're all here. Excellent, AD. Glad to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to get back to the empathy trap. So, okay,
Yeah.
now we've all been, now these are the women. That's the women's propaganda that I gave examples of. The men's propaganda was along the lines of, polyamorous Joe Rogan type of, guests that talk about how great it is to be rich and have, an abundance of women, right? So they were sold that bill of goods, and perpetual, like throughout. And the women are getting ours. And so the women were like, oh, this trans kid, right, is vulnerable, so we have to protect them. Now normally women, when women's antenna go up about protection, it's organic, and we're usually right. So the men were like, okay, you're in charge of the kids, pretty much. Not all, but pretty much. So, and then when they said, wait a second, this looks a little fishy, like boys can't be girls, they got the big, you're bad. No, you're bad empathy. You don't have an empathy. You're bad. Stay out of it. Right. They got that. Divided the women and the men a little, enough. And I feel like my empathy, okay, is having boundaries, right? And providing boundaries for children that desperately need them. Okay. When I'm out on boots on the ground, what I'm seeing is a bunch of teenage girls and boys that are desperate for boundaries, and they're almost half insane. I mean, their pupils start, like, they're dilated, and they're shifting back and forth. And it's frightening, that these kids, and I don't know if their parents know or if they're just not paying attention. So there's a whole group of, these are the on the ground kids, right? There's other ones that are locked in their room, on the social media. So those are the kids that I'm being exposed to. I can't speak to the other ones, but they are begging for boundaries. I mean, like, when I'm at a protest, they come up to me. I don't have to go to them. If they find out women are doing something, they show up. It's not like we create it. We just are like, hey, we're going to have a library conference.
And one of the things I was thinking when you were talking about the swim meet, I was like, I bet it felt really good for the women that were there to see you guys there. I bet it felt like this was probably the first time they felt like they actually had people supporting them.
Oh yeah. Well, the first one, the parents came out and said thank you and told us that the team members, the girls, the women swimming, said thank you. So they sent their fathers out to thank us, because that was the first time anybody had ever really publicly said something. And then the second time we sang in the Westchester, at the Westchester swim meet. So we actually went inside. And that was a weird experience. It was so suffocating. It was hard to even sing. And the strange thing about that was they knew we were coming because we had already been to one. So they weren't surprised. And when I took off my jacket, I had, adult human female in there. And the cop looked at me and her eyes kind of bulged out of her head, but she didn't do anything. And when we sang, they didn't do anything. They listened. And actually, some people kind of got up and swayed with us a little bit. But the strange thing was, it was just this. I kept on the way there, I kept saying, why don't the lib femmes say no? Why don't they say no? And then when I was there, I was like, this is why they don't say no. It was actually hard for me, an outsider, to go in and speak up. And it, I mean, I didn't expect to feel that, because I speak up all the time, like it's not a, but I really was afraid. And of course, being in this business, I guess I've had to learn to confront my fears. And I do that because I had irrational fears. We're all in the propaganda. Okay. Like, we are all in it. So, when you say, YouTube will do this to me, I believe you that YouTube. There's no doubt that in my mind, I've seen
Oh
it happen
yeah.
to
Yeah.
many, that you get punished for speaking your mind, free speech, basically. But I also know that there's lots of irrational fears in people's heads where it prevents them from actually getting out there. Now, I looked at my life before I decided to get into this and kind of structured it so that they couldn't take things away from me. Um,
That's so important to do. Yeah.
yeah. But even with that, even though I knew I had this like safety net, I still was scared. You know.
Well, let's talk about that because I mean, definitely one of the drums that I've been beating, and my channel regulars will know this, is it drives me insane that people are just so lazy and complacent about all of the things that are going on in our world. And I'm like, can you just go to one rally or just hold a sign or send an email or do something? And it drives me crazy how hard it is to get people to do even like the tiniest of things. And so one of the things we were talking about before we came on the air is, you are a boots on the ground activist. You go to protests, you protest in person very frequently, and even then you're still kind of nervous sometimes when you go to protest. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, yeah. Before it gets easier, it does get easier. The first few protests, I was really scared, because you have different elements. Different protests create different elements too. So with gender ideology, you have crazy men that are hopped up on cross sex hormones, and you don't really. It's very hard to kind of determine what their next move is. So that was a fear that, like women, we are physically weaker. And then these crazy men are going to come and scream in our faces and, maybe hit us or, that type of thing. Um, Honestly, though, I've never like that hasn't happened. I know it's happened in the past to some, feminists, but for me, it hasn't happened. And, I honestly think sometimes Antifa's there just to control them. Like they're not even there to
Yeah.
start trouble with us. They just don't want them, the bad publicity of them, punching a mom in the face, right? So my fear there kind of dissipated, and I've been in many, protests where I'm have to confront TRAs, right? But most of the protests that I like to do are friendlies. I call them the friendly protests because I like to have a good time. And so I'll go to a bar and just turn it into a Save Women Sports protest. You can literally make a protest anywhere.
How does that work? How do you do that? Oh,
How
I
does that,
can't. Okay. Your sound cut out for a minute, but you're back. Go ahead.
does that work? Well, um, we were doing a Save Women Sports protest for Evie. I forgot her last name. So we did like I just picked a town, Downers Grove. We went there, we chalked, and we held signs, and we went by the train tracks and stickered everywhere. And then afterwards, and this is just a minor protest, right, with like 10 people, right? It's not a big wasn't a big deal, just a Sunday afternoon. And I knew a bar that was going to be friendly towards us, and I'm like, let's bring our signs in there. And they ended up passing the glass around, and we made like $40.
So I mean, it sounds like at a lot of these events, you actually, I mean, and this is true of some of the protests I've been to too, unexpectedly, you actually get a pretty positive reception, even though it might be scary to go. But like once you go and you see people are actually on your side, does that tend to be the reality?
That is the reality. The reality is people are so afraid to speak up. And a lot of times the first thing they'll do, they'll come up like, like like a little curious, and they'll look at the signs and they're like, what's going to happen here? And then when you start talking to them, I actually get the feeling that they're thinking we're trying to trick them.
Hmm.
Like, so we can call them bad, right? Because they're used to that. And then they'll say a little thing, and then we just pour on the this is wrong, and this is what's wrong with it. And then they won't shut up. They don't shut up. They won't
Oh,
leave.
I know. Like once you open the floodgates, people are like, "Let me tell you all the things I think is wrong with the world."
And they talk about mostly their kids and family members that
Mm.
have been indoctrinated into this, basically what I think of as a religious cult, where they're demanding sacrifices of these kids, and the sacrifices are their body parts. I mean, they're demanding double mastectomies. And I think a lot of kids get confused, because they're getting the information from the internet, and they're alone in their rooms bouncing around in their own algorithms. And then they get these ideas, and then we're confirming the ideas you know, with kind of like, I have to do this because I don't want to get in trouble. I have to do this because I'm in a divorce. I have to do this. There's a lot of reasons that the parents will capitulate to the desire of their child. Um, the parents aren't coming back with, I won't let you do this.
Mhm.
I won't call you a boy. You're a girl, and I won't do it. That I don't see a lot of that happening. And
Do you think the parents are afraid?
oh, they're terrified. They're getting
Yeah.
their kids taken away. I know a woman that had her daughter taken away and had to go to like some reprogramming hospital from at Chicago, the Memorial, Lurie's Children's Hospital now. Used to be Children's Memorial. Had to go to like mandated classes that the court ordered on, empathy,
She literally got sent to the gulag for re-education.
re-education. Yeah. I mean, it's
Wow.
not that the parents aren't correct in being afraid, but I mean, like, if there's something that I mean, I would die for my child. I'm not gonna like capitulate to something that society has for some odd reason adopted, when I know that it's going to harm my child. So I you know and I
You know,
and
I Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I know people are in their propaganda bubble, and they just kind of go along to get along, and they just want it to go away. And it's like we're past that point. We're past that point where it's going to go away. I was there too. I wanted it to go away. But unless we get out on the street and, make demands, as the adults in the room, this is going to continue. And I mean, there are literally young men that are like in a eunuch. They're eunuchs. Okay. They're like, and they call themselves eunuchs. If you look at their name on Twitter or whatever, they call themselves eunuchs because,
Really?
yeah, because they
Wow.
called, like 16, 17. By the time they're 20, they have removed their ability to procreate and sexual function, and they're deeply disturbed, and but like detransitioning, like they've
Yeah.
really made a mistake. And the girls too. There's a growing number. I think there's 26,000 detransitioner thread on Reddit. So I mean, like, they're getting hurt. These kids are actually, like, they're getting hurt. It's not a joke. It's not, I know it's a weird conversation, but it's happening, and we're losing.
No. It definitely is happening. I just want to take this super chat from Savritz, and I want to add to this conversation. Savritz says self-projecting fears into their own reality. I mean, I think that a lot of parents kind of do that in this situation. But I want to talk about, did you happen to see, Jen, did you happen to see the videos that came out from the Burlington, Vermont school district about a month ago?
No, no, I
Oh,
have.
this is gonna drive you crazy. This is actually journalism that my supporters and my unwoke army did, because we accidentally stumbled upon these webinars that the Burlington, Vermont School District put on their YouTube channel, in which they were parading 12-year-old seventh graders around for parents talking about gender ideology. And in a couple of those trainings, they were talking about how it was the assistant principal of the middle school, and she was talking with a child that was basically saying that they had come out in the fifth grade with the help of their guidance counselor. And because I had watched a number of these webinars, and they use kind of the same kids over and over and over again in these webinars, I had kind of sussed out that this kid didn't mean that they came out as gay. They meant that they came out as trans. And they like were injecting pronouns into everything. And this was a middle school displaying their kids live on the internet as a virtue signal. And I got to tell you, like, for me and for many of the people who watched that, we kind of felt like we were watching children be abused right in front of us, which is why we kind of worked all weekend to make sure we were exposing as much as we possibly could, and we're still continuing work in that area. But that to me was one of the most, like, I guess, clarifying moments of this discussion, and when I think I really started paying attention and thinking, I mean, I knew this stuff was going on in schools, but to see it happen right in front of you, and to see a 12-year-old talk about coming out as trans in the fifth grade with the help of the guidance counselor, that to me was shocking.
It, yeah. Well, I mean, I know from my own family that the schools are all geared towards hiding this from the parents. My sister was in a divorce, and they hid. I mean, I had some ups and downs with my sisters, but they hid that she was claiming non-binary status from the father during the divorce. And I was like, no, you need to tell the father. If you don't tell the father, I'm going to tell the father, because I of course know how dangerous this ideology is. And then the father ended up not really caring. So, I mean, because they want to take it as, oh, it's just a little fad she's going through, blah, blah, blah. Right. But meanwhile, we're capitulating to the pronouns. So we're
Mhm.
gaslighting her, telling her it's a fad, right? Because I mean, nobody believes that this child is a boy.
Right.
And, um, and it's just the with the schools, sadly, Biden's EO, um, the day 7 hours after he was inaugurated, he put out a bunch of EOs. Um, it's sort of his EOs cover federal, right? So anything federal. So you get federal prisons, and how they get into the public schools is the federal lunch program, the funding. So if these schools that are getting federal funding don't capitulate to the policy, they will lose their federal funding. So
Right.
pretty much every school has gender identity and ideology curriculum in it. um, how the school's administration, um, works with these policies. Some of the schools will make the female teachers, faculty room the extra bathroom, right? And then some of the schools will just slap a sign on all the bathrooms that say girls plus or boys plus. Like in Chicago, with 356,000 students, they are putting girls plus and boys plus on all the bathrooms. And if they didn't, if they rejected President Biden's EO and those policies, like Chicago public schools, a huge city, the third largest city in America, would have to shut their doors.
So does
So
that just mean, like, does the plus mean that anyone can basically use whatever bathroom they want?
yeah.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what,
Nothing could go wrong with that plan.
yeah, and I'll tell you what's happening. uh, some of the administrators at the schools are, trying to work around this. So they have like a few bathrooms that are girls plus and boys plus. So the one right by the lunchroom is girls plus and boys plus, but then they have other ones that aren't. And what's happening is the male teachers, and this two teachers have told me this. This is just like a side story, but two teachers have told me this, that their classrooms are right across right across the hall from where the women's faculty lounge is. And the men are coming down with their newspaper under their arm and taking a dump in the women's room and stinking it up. So it's not like, I mean, you think like that's, an unintended consequence, but now nobody, everything's willy-nilly. You can do whatever the hell you want. So that's what the men are using. The teacher, predominantly female teachers, work in schools, in the lower grades. And even, I mean, maybe the high school, it starts to tend to equal out a little bit, but that's what the men are doing. Like, there is a race to the bottom with behavior, and like it just opens this up to, not to mention the safeguarding violations that the students are under. I mean, I was in Loudon there. I'm sure the story.
I'm very familiar with Loudon. Yeah.
They're allowing rapes and then hiding that. They're facilitating rapes by having these places for the kids to go do this, right? And then they're hiding it. And then in order for us to get it out of the school, you have to literally like get 1,000 people to go to every single school board meeting. I mean, like, when this policy shouldn't even be in there, but to rip it out, it takes a whole community. So that's why I'm going. And even like we're going to do a protest in New York on the 21st. And this is really just an awareness protest. I don't anticipate any problems, any counter protesters.
There it is.
This is just an awareness so that people can see other people standing and saying no, right? Because that's the stage that we're at. The more people that come and say no with us is, better. But like in New York, I'm guessing there hasn't been too many protests of saying no. So it'll probably be a pretty small, maybe 30 people. And we're going to call all the news, whether they show up or not. I don't know. Because they don't want to cover what they perceive as TERFs saying no. So then we'll push it out through our media streams.
Let me ask you this, because the work that I focus on is mostly around the curriculum in schools with the woke ideology and what I consider to be a Marxist ideology being integrated throughout the curriculum to the detriment of kids actually learning how to read, write, and do math. One of the frustrations that I continuously have as a woman who, I don't have kids of my own and I don't really intend to have kids. Like, I would sooner shoot myself in the foot, quite frankly. I like my time and I like my money. But like, I kind of feel sometimes like I'm one of the only people screaming in the wilderness about what's going on in the schools. And I kind of feel like I care more about what's being taught to other people's kids than their own parents do. And I kind of imagine it might be a similar feeling for you, like screaming about like the gender, not scream like, but like, protesting about the gender stuff and kind of feeling like, why isn't anyone like, why are these parents okay with literal rape being covered up at the school and not saying anything because they're so afraid of conflict that they don't say anything? Is that kind of a frustration that you have?
Well, I covered a lot of these frustrations with the parents at the swim meet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you saying something, on behalf of your daughter? And that's when, I realized that, we are animals as humans. We do have like kind of an animal nature, and we learn from modeling, and they need to see brave people stand up and say no so that they can model the behavior. And we aren't really at that stage yet. We are getting there for sure. But it's really about this modeling of the behavior, because they've been told what to say over the past, like I went through the propaganda. They've been told what to think, what to say. And I mean, I was in the propaganda. Nobody is stupid for believing that, like, you don't even know you're being brainwashed,
Right.
kind of like living your life. I mean, I was busy. And I thought, I was doing great. I thought I was, active with my child. I was active in the schools. Had a business, like I was, I had a lot going on. So I understand why people are, just kind of are like, I'm busy. I can't deal with that. There's, food on the table issues, or there's this, or there's that. But when they see somebody, and when they see it at their school, when they see, 30 people with signs, that piques their interest. And then they're like, well, maybe this is a bigger problem than I thought. Because they do want to put it in this, oh, it's just a thing. Don't worry about it. We got, like getting food on the table is the higher priority. So just ignore that. And I think, that it's how, it all works. You see somebody talk about it and you're like, okay. I mean, I saw Jordan Peterson talking about the free speech, and this being the first time in English law that they're compelling speech. And that was another, like I had these little peaks in my life, but they weren't some giant jump off a mountain peak. They were like, okay, this piece of information got in there. And then maybe a year later, another piece, and they sort of collected. And then I was like, oh my God, this is nuts. Like, I gotta, like, we can't, somebody has to say no. And luckily I had put myself in a position where I knew I couldn't be threatened. My job couldn't be threatened. I also moved. That just happened to coincide with like the events of my life. But now I'm in a better position where I live. I'm closer to New York and Philly and DC now. And there were like things that I actually did to make it possible for me to do this. But everybody needs to take a look at their life and kind of figure out how it's going to be possible for them to do this, because this is the greatest threat to our way of life and democracy. Like if you combine CRT and gender ideology and the complete misinformation campaign, and how they're like basically we have a puppet government at this point. Like I'm not totally have the right people to push through whatever they want. I mean, this is a major threat to the American democracy and American way of life. So it's
I know, I totally agree with you. I tell people all the time that even though critical race theory is what I tend to talk about the most, with social emotional learning being a close second, and social emotional learning, of course, very closely overlaps with the gender ideology. All of this stuff is intertwined. And from my perspective, the ultimate goal of all of this is that they want to gain power so that they can destabilize the system, so that they can attack capitalism, so they can usher in their little like Marxist utopia. But all of this hinges on they need to destabilize every part of our system. And I do believe the family is one of those things that they're going after hard to try to destabilize. And all of these things are just inextricably linked with each other. And they're just like, they're fighting this battle on multiple different fronts. And I don't think people realize how much overlap there is between all of these different ideologies.
right, because they have us divided. But honestly, I mean, really, most of the probably a lot of your people may not agree with me on abortion or surrogacy or whatever, but I can pretty much guarantee they don't want their kids taught gender ideology.
Mm-hmm.
It want their kids sex, their kids to be confused about sex and then become a commodity of doctors and surgeons and drug companies to just splice them up and spit them out. Like we can all agree on that. I mean, I would say.
I would hope so. And I definitely want to talk to you about the abortion stuff in a second, but I want to say too that I absolutely believe that not everyone's on my channel is going to agree about the abortion discussion. I think you and I might agree more than some of my audience might agree with us. But I also think the thing is that we need to find people to align with on an issue by issue basis. And I'm a libertarian, and so we have to sometimes work with Republicans to get stuff done in my state, and we sometimes have to work with Democrats, and it just is what it is. But you've got to find people that you can align with on those issues. And if you don't agree with everything, fine, but you can still pass a bill on this particular issue, and everyone can come to the table on that. I just want to go through a couple super chats that have come in. Thank you guys for the support. Savrit says, Remember, the situational gravity to be androgynous will remain in an accelerated state as an organism when man knew no woman, woman knew no man. Savritz is taking us into the esoteric today, which we always do appreciate, and he always gives us great things to think about. Oh, the super hat jump. Elena says, sending much love from TERF Island, bedtime in the UK, going to catch this wonderful talk tomorrow. Well, hopefully it'll be here when you come back tomorrow, Elena. Like, I really am trying to make doing what I can to, like, I know people in the chat are angry that I'm using some of the language, but I really want this talk to stay on YouTube. But just in case it doesn't, we're on Odyssey, we're on Rockfin, and we are on Rumble as well. Thank you, Lisa, for that super chat. I didn't see any text there. Let me just scroll down. Helen, Trans by Helen Joyce, is a great book for research and awesome on Audible with a lovely Irish accent. A great suggestion, Helen. We appreciate that. And I think I have one more. I just want to make sure we get to everyone. Oh, got a couple more. Hang on. AD, where did ADs go? Oh no. There's AD. AD says, Carlin and Jennifer, how can we help women achieve equality in a fair, sustainable, and healthy way? What a great question. Jennifer, do you have thoughts?
Well, we can definitely support women when we are going up against legislation that is allowing, men in our sports, in our bathrooms, in our locker rooms, having the distinction of the definition of woman in law is a way to help women. But also there's many, like, just help the women in your life, like, literally, like, you see somebody, I'm all over, hold the door, like, I do not get mad at men for holding the door open for me,
Oh, me neither. I love it.
like, just, and start maybe, having that mindset of, I'm gonna help women today, and what can I do today to help women? Helping children is also helping women, helping with childcare, like, I'm very service oriented. When I was in Chicago, I haven't really met too many of my neighbors yet, because I've been on the road. But I would give the older women rides to church. I went and put in nutrition program at a Chicago public school. There are so many ways to help. Stop using pronouns. Stop using wrong pronouns. I'm going to get back on this wrong pronoun thing in the language, and I understand why that you're. I'm not trying to make you use words you don't want to use. The feminists, most of my radical feminist friends, we, because you kind of like get lulled into using their language because there's not words that describe, like, you're like, oh my God, well, how do I even talk to people? Simplifying it, I just say men now, and then I'll try to do, like, air quotes, trans, because we don't want people to think that it's possible that there's some type of third sex that has this ability to change sex. This is why this issue is so important. I think this issue is more important for women's rights than the abortion issue, because if we can't define what a woman is, we cannot adequately protect women in law. And that's all laws. Okay. That's not just, and of course there's a flip side of that. We can't define male either. Right. Because women are physically weaker than men, and there's a societal structure that's sort of around that, where, it's not as safe for us to be in the public square. It's not as safe, we need these accommodations, and we definitely have to have that definition. So if that is the one way where, if you really want to help women, push for a law to be on the books that define woman as adult human female.
Well, I was talking with Gabrielle Clark, actually. I think it was her it might have actually just been yesterday in our community Zoom call in locals, where she was talking about, my position on, I do want to get into abortion more thoroughly in a second, but she was saying how if they try to pass, like, some federal law on abortion, that might actually be one of the best things that could happen, because they could try to, in that law, write in a definition of what a woman is, which, it might not please the conservatives that they're passing passing some like basically codifying Roe v. Wade into law, but it might please conservatives that they've at least defined woman in the process of codifying Roe v. Wade into law. Is that something that you've been thinking about?
Well, from my perspective, I don't think this is an accident that this came up right now. I
Oh,
think
no, I don't think it's an accident at all. I think that well, let's just actually I want to go through the super chats we have, and then I want to get into the abortion dialogue because I have thoughts, and I bet you do too. Emphasize says Blair White has power over you by coercion through illusionary manipulation. I'm catching up at times 2 speed. I know why you guys might think that. I do not agree. And as much as I'm not going to have my language compelled by one side, I'm also not going to have my language compelled by the other. So I Blair White has always been good to me. I don't feel like Blair White is using power over me. So that's where I'm at right now. But I fully respect everyone else to make their own decisions with that because it's your language. You can do whatever you want. Savrit says placebo identities as well as placebo racism. Yep, Savrit, we got another addition there. And then Sam says, are there more trans kids in families that don't have strong parental involvement? Is a lack of male and female role models a contributing factor? I don't know the answer to that. Do you, Jennifer?
I want to say that, I don't want anyone to think that their child is safe. They're confusing kids in kindergarten with, with propaganda books that, that are meant to confuse their sex. I do think that if you're in a family where you have discussed, embodiment and like trusting your instincts and trusting, the messages that your body gives to you, that is a way to fortify your kid against, falling into this ideology because they're going inside to find out how they feel about things rather than, listening to what other people are saying and, and like going against what they're seeing. Like they see a man and they're now have to call a man a woman. That's very confusing for kids. And you have to remember they're in the same bubble too. So, if right now, I have a 23-year-old. Okay. So, and she is turfed. She got turfed. Okay. I'm worried about my 23-year-old.
Good for
But
her.
if I had a small child at this point, I would put them in probably a Catholic school. If I was still in Chicago, I'd put them in a Catholic school and I would be very involved in the school. There's no way I would put them in a school unless I was, like the room mom, showing up on Fridays, making sure that, like what going through like meetings with the principal about the curriculum and what's being taught. There's just so many ways they're victimizing the children with this propaganda and what is the purpose behind that? Well, it's a $500 million industry. This is complete commodification of the human body. They want they want they want the business. It costs a lot of money to get a mastectomy and a orchiectomy and, a nully surgery, which is nully is for the non-binary. So if your kid, kind of saw what was up and was like, okay, I'm non-binary, they'll leave me alone. No, now they have non-binary nully surgeries, which remove everything.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like, it's whatever, whenever the kids sort of come up with a way to run away from this, which because a lot of kids kind of know what's up too. They put them in a box and, okay, now you're poly or you're demisexual or you're that. They put them in a box and then they offer up a plethora of options that cost money so that they can fulfill their category they've been put into. So yeah, if I had a young child at this point, knowing what I know now and how I know that it's in all the public schools, for sure, 100
Yes.
for sure,
True.
curriculum is in the public schools and it starts early. It starts in first and second grade, kindergarten. The reading starts in kindergarten, first and second grade. It's very, very like insidious. So I would, and then if I, like depending on where you live, it's in some of the Catholic schools. So you have to really kind of have to like really look into what your kids are learning and maybe homeschool them. I mean, 10 years ago, I would have been like, don't homeschool your kid because they're missing out on social this or, like the social aspect of growing up. But at this point, it's pretty scary out there.
It is. Well, I literally actually just yesterday on the channel, I read a curriculum from Washington State. This is a sex ed curriculum for kindergarten, in which in kindergarten they are teaching kids like that some women have vulvas, some women have penises, or some men have penises, but people who are not men can have penises and people who are not women can have vulvas. And it's just like, this was literally written for 5-year-olds. I was like, I was still eating paste when I was in kindergarten. I knew how to read. I was a little bit more advanced than everyone else, but like this was sex ed that I don't think I even got until probably late high school, that they're now teaching to 5-year-olds, which was a little bit disturbing for me, was, reading about penises and vulvas for 5-year-olds. I was like, what the heck is going on? Savrit says, all data we consume from our individual experience and external observations of others is the information that our boundaries of perception are formed. Again, Savrit's very esoteric. So I wanted,
a
yeah,
big deal with this because
yeah.
you are encroaching on children's boundaries before they even are fully developed. And I mean, these kids don't have a freaking chance. You
No.
get the teachers in front of them capitulating to the program, the pronouns, the students that are, that are saying they're trans or they're non-binary or have ultimate power. They can pretty much get a teacher fired. So none of the teachers are going to say boo, right?
They're going to be the most popular kid in school too. They're going to have all the friends because they have to have all the friends, I would think.
I don't know if that's, I think that
No?
they're, no, I don't think they're popular because they're tyrants that go around making people, I mean, I can't imagine that they're too popular, right? Like, I mean, if you're a kid and you're, you're seeing this and you're like, well, if I do this, I'll be popular. You might, but like most of the kids that are sort of doing it to be popular, that's sort of the reason why they're not popular to begin with, right? Because they think they have to do something different, and not be themselves. So I think it's not, I mean, I do think there will be a pushback from the children themselves at some point where they're just like, no, this is not cool. And I don't think you're cool. And maybe that will help. I can't wait. I mean, I'm hoping that there'll be a pushback because we need a pushback from, many different directions. But yeah, I don't think that they're like gaining social credit points. I think they're more gaining like power, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they're wielding it like a child, and you can't really blame them because
They are kids.
yeah,
They're kids.
we set the structure up for that. This is their plethora of options, right? And they're just coming in trying to pick the best one. And trans is now an option that was never there before. Trans is, it's total freaking bullshit. I'm going to say it again, total bullshit. Kids, little boys and little girls cannot change sex. There's, under any circumstances they're not little cuddle fish or whatever, the ones that can change. They're human beings. We're sexually dimorphic. We are there's a binary, there's no non-binary. We're leading these kids astray. And if we would just like, it wouldn't really even matter if there weren't these horrible demon doctors and laws that are pushing it along. I mean, if the kids were just like, yeah, I'm a trans and I'm going to cut my hair off, it wouldn't matter. Nobody would give two squats about what they're doing. It's that they're harming themselves. And they're harming us too. They're harming our way of life. Okay, like literally, these kids can't even believe it.
Well, I mean, and they're kids, and it's like anything that you teach a child before they're 8 years old is going to be pretty well cemented in their brain for the rest of their lives. So that's, I mean, this is why they keep going earlier and earlier and earlier with the education to begin with. Emphasize says your answer to my super chat shows your bias and compliance to mental manipulation. No, emphasize what it shows is that I don't want to get a strike on my YouTube channel, and I'm not going to be tricked into getting a strike, even if you pay me for a super chat. Like, you guys really, like, I do not want to strike on my channel. I want this conversation to stay on the channel. If you want to keep sabotaging it, you can try, but I'm not going to allow it to happen. I'm sorry. This is a form of masochism, women fighting against women's rights to give them blah, 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 blah. Thank you, Emphasize, for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. And Savard says, the adults have created the trans kids. By the way, this pretty lady's intellect is high. Yes, of course it is. We need more of this dialogue. Philosophical first aid is needed. I totally agree on that one, Savrits. So I want to talk about Roe.
Okay,
So when I heard, and I when this case got heard, I pitched a fit as soon as I had even heard that this case was going to the Supreme Court, because I was like, holy hell, here we go. The right has stepped in it because they poked the third rail, and they are about to sacrifice all of the progress that we've made across every other area for their pet issue of abortion. And I was really pissed off when the case was heard. And then when the decision got leaked this past week, I'm going to be honest, Jennifer, I feel like we've known each other for about an hour and 25 minutes now. So we're like old friends. Like, I have basically sunk into a black pill of depression over the last week, because I was like, this is going to derail every bit of progress that we've been able to make with getting women, like moms especially, to defect from the Democratic Party, get them to like start waking up to what's going on in schools, and all of them are going to run right back to the Democrats, who are forcing all of this insanity on us. Because, like, I don't think people who don't have experience with this don't understand how much this issue means to women who consider themselves to be pro-choice. I don't consider myself to be pro-abortion. I've never had an abortion. I think it should be safe, legal, and rare, like a normal, sane person probably should think. But it's also like, I can't vote for the Republicans when they are like trying to take away the right of choice from women who have been raped. That doesn't feel good to me. And so I kind of see this as a poison pill that's going to sabotage a lot of good work in this area, because I think it's going to drive women and mothers back right over to the left, where we finally got them to start waking up to. What are your thoughts about it?
well, I mean, I'm a TERF. It's not going to drive me back to the left, because the left
Mhm.
is it's just total chaos and insanity right now. And I understand that, like, it doesn't really matter if I have a right to an abortion, if I'm basically a slave because I'm not, you know, defined in the law, right?
Mhm.
So, like, to me, the abortion, but I understand that it's a very important issue to, women and men, because men have coasted for free on abortion. And they act like it's they want to say they want a say in it. But if you look at, like, what's been, the abortion has many issues that I find sticky. um but I do, when all is said and done, I think women have the right to their bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to end abortion, they would have, make. I mean, you think about it. You're a woman. You're pregnant. You're watching everything. Is this a safe place to bring my baby into the world? Is this world going to be, healthy place for my baby? Is it going to be accepting of me? Am I going to be able to live? Am I going to be able to support this child? All these questions are happening while you're pregnant. And if what you're seeing is, porn on steroids, and total indoctrination of children, um, you know, women being treated as second class citizens, why would you want to bring a child into the world? So, I mean, I feel like the right could have spent a lot of time making it more agreeable for women to want to have a child, as
Mhm.
opposed
I agree.
to child. um but they didn't. right? And neither did the left either. Okay, the left, none of them did it,
Oh
right?
yeah, no, they didn't do it either. Yeah.
Not like, but the left is now pulling this out of their back pocket and using it as a tool so that we will swallow any freaking law that they want to come out with. And they're going to say we need to end the filibuster and expand the
Yep.
court, right?
Yep. Been
So,
saying the same thing. Yep.
yeah, they're going to say that, and guess what they're going to push through? The Equality Act.
Yep.
Okay. And then we won't even be like people. Like we won't have any distinction in the law. So like, as much as I want to like jump on the side of, the left that wants to protect the rights, of women for reproductive rights, I know they're full of shit. Pardon my French. I know they're full of shit, and I don't want to. I am not going to give up, my freedoms, like my literal freedoms to everything, for abortion rights. I mean, I think if we, like, first of all, I don't even think it's possible to take away abortion rights at this point. There's too many, like, internet, buy this, plan B or whatever. Like, I mean, it would be really hard to actually, like, the boots on the ground version, take away abortion rights for women. I mean, women have been, ending pregnancies throughout history, like if they don't think that their situation is good, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like abortion is new. Abortion is around. I mean, there's animals that, you're like, God, I hope she takes care of that runt, or doesn't like, reject
Right.
it.
This is not going to get rid of abortion in any way, shape, or form. And I think the right is fooling itself. I actually think this is going to end up creating more abortion, if I'm honest. Because I
Well,
think the minute you try to restrict something, it creates more of it, which should have been incentive enough for them to try to change culture, but sadly they didn't.
no, they didn't. And I mean, and I'm sure there are good people on the right that, work for, causes that are better women's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, but like collectively as, an instrument of political change, the right did nothing to, say like, oh, the sovereignty of life. And, like, well, if you think life is so precious, why are you not setting up a system where women want to have a child,
Right.
where are terrified that they're going to be ground up in poverty, and all of that comes with it. So yeah, my fear with this is they're going to push through that ending of the filibuster, or the expansion of the Supreme Court. And that, I mean, I just keep talking about that because we
Yeah.
cannot let them do that. We cannot let them change the way that we operate, the way that the checks and balances, in the little bit that's left of the checks and balances. Okay, it's not even, I mean, think about, like, is the Supreme Court, do they have them bought too? I mean, do they do they do they have enough of them? you know and I get a little crazy because I'm in the gender part of this, where I blame everything on the gender industry. but I mean, it's just everything that comes out, I'm like, wow, the gender industry has, the Supreme Court now in their back pocket, like, really? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because this came up because there was pushback because of Will Thomas, because people started
Oh
talking,
yeah.
and that's why it's happening right after this. So it's like, does the gender industry have, does our puppet government, which, like, the gender industry is sitting behind, and I'm sure CRT, lobby or whatever you call them, are there too.
Oh yeah.
But do they have enough power to actually pay for a life position? Like, I mean, maybe, how much do the Supreme Court justices make? Are they, like, are they viable? It was supposed to be protected that, they get that position for life, and, that somewhat protected you from, them being bribed or blackmailed or whatever. But now I think it's all a puppet government at this point. Like, they have, not completely, they have enough people to push their agenda through, though. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know, like, where we can go. I mean, my plan was to get exposure on the sports thing push that, and I'm doing it again in September. There's a cycling event in LA, and then it was like a big picture plan, and then go to the schools and root it out. This, like the on the ground type deal and a big picture. That was my approach to it. I mean, I'm just a person. I'm not,
Right.
but that was how I envisioned a way forward for myself, to combat this. I don't know what are your.
Well, I mean, I'm very thankful that I live in New Hampshire and we're extremely libertarian in New Hampshire. And so I feel like as long as I live here, I feel like there's at least local control and sanity. And God willing, someday New Hampshire will actually secede from the United States. And so then we don't have to worry about it at all. And everything else can burn and we'll be in our safe little enclave. That's honestly how I've thought about it. It's like, I think that, I really think that national politics is kind of like just completely screwed at this point. I think that the left is going to use this to try to implement their most extreme ideologies. I completely agree with you that they're going to try to get rid of the filibuster, and I completely agree with you that they're going to try to pack the court. I think they're also going to bring back their greatest hits of like every insane plan they've ever had. Like they're going to try to get Green New Deal, they're going to try to get Equality Act, they're going to codify like the most extreme levels of abortion just to prove that they can. Like they're going to get election stuff implemented, and it's just like, I mean, it's just a matter of like how much can they actually pull off before November. I also think that the midterms, which I thought were pretty much a lock for the Republicans and at least provide us some safeguard, I now think that that's completely up in the air. I think the Republicans will still take the House, but I don't think they're going to take the Senate anymore. And it's just like, I just wish that we could all, come together around the idea that there is actual insanity going on the left. And they're literally right now rolling out the exact same playbook that they rolled out in 2020 with like they're gonna be protesting this crap all summer.
Yep.
And I don't actually think they believe any of this stuff. It's just about creating chaos so that they end up influencing the votes in November.
And they're gonna, what's gonna happen, it's gonna backfire, because they're gonna have these crazy young women going into like, um spiritual screaming sessions about abortion.
Oh
and,
yeah.
and then I mean, what does that tell you? Like, this person isn't in their right mind to make a decision. Like, that's visually what you're seeing.
And that reflects on all women.
Yeah. So they're just, because they do not care about. I mean, I honestly, if I had to measure which side cared more about women, I would say the right at this point. Not that I'm foolish enough to think that,
Oh, they're doing their own thing of now they're trying to get rid of birth control. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, right. Because they're like, yeah, why? And so you want to what an oxy, like, you want to get rid of birth control, but you want to reduce the number of abortions. It just doesn't even make sense, like. So we're just going to go back to, so now we have no birth control, no abortions. I'm wondering when like the hijab is coming for America, because like, if you can't go to the bathroom without some freaky dude hopped up on cross-sex hormones in there doing most likely criminal acts. Okay. So now our movement is going to be subjected to like, fear, basically. And like the family members are like, oh, don't go to that bathroom, or why'd you go to that bathroom when you knew? Well, all the bathrooms are, available for these dudes to come in. And, really, like, a lot of this can be resolved with just boots on the ground tactics. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this, and I'm not saying to be lawless, but, men saying no to other men that are going into women's bathrooms could possibly end this tomorrow. Okay. Like,
Oh yeah.
men saying, but women saying no can't end it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So like, this lands at the foot of men. Okay. Men are allowing this and are willing to give up this. Now think about like just what that might be like, right? Like, if your wife doesn't feel safe going in the public square, yeah, I hope you got gas up the car, because you're going to be taking the kids everywhere. I hope you, I mean, like, do you realize what you're even signing up for here? Like, if you're not helping women, women do a lot of the work that's invisible in the family, and it makes it all look so easy. But if you restrict women's movements like this, get ready to work, besides your, 9 hour a day job, get ready to, for 6 or 7 hours on top of that, because like you're going to be going to Costco, you're going to be going to, like all
Right.
it.
Well, it strikes me because there's definitely like this tradcon thing on the right of like men who are like, they want to be the providers and the hunters, and they like, they're very into like traditional gender roles. And like as you're saying, like what would it be like if men stood up to other men and said, "No, you will not do this?" I'm kind of thinking in my head, I'm like, this is the conservative tradcon, like wet dream where finally they get to be the protectors of women. Where are they? This is their moment. It's their time to shine.
And this goes back to risk assessment, which I mean, I sympathize with them because I went through this whole process. I mean, once Biden became elected and I found my people on Twitter and, finally went to a protest, I was like, we gotta do this. This has to, we have to, we have to model this behavior, because people don't know, people need a little bit of help with it, right? A little bit of just, oh, they're doing it over there. Oh, all I need is a sign and a marker. Okay, I can join them. Okay, they need that little bit of help. And then the men on the other side of this is, they are extremely averse to any type of risk. And I do think they got penalized for saying things, so it just, the more they got penalized, the more they were reluctant to, say their opinion, and they're like, I'll just do my thing. But it is imperative that, men start stepping in and realizing this is their domain. The protection, women in general protect children, right?
Hmm.
We're the guardians of the children. Men protect women, and in order for us all to do our jobs correctly, everybody has to do their job. So I mean, like, I'm not saying that they should be overzealous with it, and but a simple, you're not going to go in this bathroom, or I'm going to hold the door open to make sure that all the women know that there's a man in the bathroom while you're going in there. This is just boots on the ground when you see this, to, take a stand. Not, and I don't, like, will it cost you your job? I doubt it. I doubt if you're at Chipotle and you go to the bathroom and there's some dude in the women's room and you hold the door open and say, whatever, I guess you can be in here, but I'm going to warn every woman coming in that there's a man in here, and hold this door open until you leave. That's not going to get you fired.
Right. Right.
You know? So your perspective of what a risk is, that's another propaganda tool that they used on us, that
Yes.
think that this risk is like way bigger than it is. And I mean, I didn't even know I was in that kind of like bubble of, until I was like, I was afraid to even tell my sister how I felt. And I didn't agree with her. Why do I care what she thinks of me when I don't agree with her? But and that kept me, like, for months. I wouldn't challenge her on anything. And finally I was like, what the hell? I
Hmm.
can't even be who I am in this relationship unless I say something at this point. So I finally just, and you know what, shit went down, like it did, but it needed to. So like, then that, like, slowly I started thinking, okay, is this fear real? I'd be driving through a protest and I'd be like, okay, what am I afraid of? Because I'm constantly practicing what I preach by saying, when you fortify your child with embodiment, and for them to check with their own emotions, that gut feeling, the like the shortness of breath I felt at the Leah Thomas thing when I went inside, right? I can
Hmm.
describe that because I'm checking with myself at all points of this protest. On the way there, at any point I can turn around and go home. I don't have to go, you know.
Right.
And I'm, checking with, like, am I okay? You know, even during a protest, even if it's a, like a pop bop in protest, if somewhere along the line my instincts are saying, you know, little hair on the back of the neck, okay, it's time to go, I leave. And it doesn't, like, I will tell everybody, my instincts are saying, let's go. If you don't agree with me, you can stay, but I'm leaving. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think this is really important for people to hear too, because it's a there even people who are experienced doing this, you're still going to get nervous, and you can always turn around and like walk away and go in the other direction if you want to. But I think that I agree with you that most people overestimate the likelihood of them getting canceled from doing very simple acts. If you aren't doing it in the workplace, chances are you're not going to chances are extremely good that you're not going to lose your job as long as you're not doing it in the workplace. It gets a little bit more risky when it comes to the workplace. But if it's just like you said at the Chipotle, like that's probably not going to make that big of a difference. And I also think that people overestimate like the they like I hear this from the right all the time. They're afraid that every time there's like a protest or something, Antifa is going to show up, and that usually doesn't happen. It does happen every once in a while, but by and large, it usually doesn't happen. And guess what? If they show up, you can just leave. Like most of the time, you're not going to get trapped.
And half the time they're showing up to control their freaky people that they got on drugs. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like the gender stuff, there's a lot of like 40 to 50 to 60-year-old autogynephile men, okay, that are popped up on hormones. They've already like gotten a group to capitulate to their hormones. So they're hot, you know, they're really tough guys at pretending to be women. And and Antifa doesn't want them punching one of the TERF moms in the face. I mean, honestly, I really do believe that half the time Antifa is at a protest, it's to control their people because their people are nuts.
Huh.
Their,
Fascinating.
yeah, their people are really nuts. And I mean, I would another reemphasize that these kids that are mixed in with them, they're mixed in with 40 to 60-year-old autogynephile men. All right. So if you have a kid in college that is saying they're non-binary, go to one of these protests, or, you know, take my word for it. Or you could do both, right? You'll see predatory behavior with grown ass men and 18, 19, 20-year-old young girls that aren't completely in. They haven't, you know, chopped anything off yet. They're just getting indoctrinated. You know, they're at the beginning of the indoctrination stage. And some of the girls won't, you know, some of them will survive it, right? They'll just be like the friend that supports it, because there's a whole love bombing thing that goes around the culture. So
Yeah.
these young girls that are not actually ever going to do anything to their bodies are the ones that are encouraging young boys to get orchiectomies, encouraging other young girls to get mastectomies and hysterectomies, and telling them how good they look, and only if they had this, you know, clavicle procedure it would really help, and their hair looks so great and your nails look so great, or your non-nails, or you look so much like a boy, or blah blah blah. So there's a layer of the autogynephile men, and then these young girls that will not get these procedures, okay, but they're encouraging them. And I guarantee you 10-15 years down the road, when those kids that they encouraged are in wheelchairs and diapers from this unnecessary surgeries, those girls are going to be long gone. The ones that have any kind of morality are going to feel really really bad about themselves. I mean, like that, I don't know if I was that age and got mixed up with that and encouraged young people to basically become eunuchs, or like, you know, and take away their ability to have children and also be sick, I would feel terrible. So when I'm, you know, at these protests, I try to talk to those young girls because I know they have influence. And I tell them, you're gonna regret doing this. Like, this is your friend. You know, if you're truly friends with this person, you will not support this. This is
Right.
ridiculous, you know. And I mean, that's where, you know, go back to like, that's the extreme, you know, version of support. And then the rest of us with our, you know, um, language, our, you know, sympathy and empathy is misplaced, right? If we really have sympathy and empathy for these children, we will give them boundaries and tell them human beings cannot change sex and not capitulate. I mean, and we are not talking right now. We're not having a conversation with children. So I'm not talking about like
Right.
like what you're doing so that you can even have a platform. I'm talking about in real life, in real family situations, because they see that capitulating to pronouns is, I mean, like in reality, it's grooming them for this belief system. So
I completely agree with you. Well, we're starting to get up to the 2 hour mark, so I want to start wrapping us up. And I do have some super chats I need to go through. I cannot believe we're almost at 2 hours. This has been a really fascinating conversation, and I want to thank you again for coming on the channel. AD says this is why women need to be defined in the law. RBG wanted it that way so that abortion could be decided under an equal protection argument under sex discrimination. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That would be a good step forward. Savrit says, women are being categorically deleted is a direct result eventuality of the deconstructionalist ideologies. Weak psyches are highly suggestible. By the way, YouTube took off my notifications again. WTF. Yes, YouTube does like to unsubscribe people from my channel and not notify them when I'm going live. So guys, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And if you never subscribe, please make sure you subscribe today. I do daily content around basically how insane I think the woke left is. Emphasize says, I guess supporting women means that I'm supposed to support women harming women's rights. If you can't beat them, join them. Damned if I do or don't. Thank you, Emphasize, for that. Oh my goodness, I've got a couple more I just need to get through because I want to honor everyone's super chat. They all do go to support the channel, which I really do appreciate. Emphasize says, women's bathrooms aren't going to smell nice anymore. Yeah, that's probably the biggest tragedy of this entire thing is the state of women's bathrooms moving forward. Jess Hall says Jennifer Thomas is an absolute shiro. Thank you for doing what you are doing. Love from Scotland. Women won't wees it. I love it. I love it. And we got a couple more. Let me see. Thank you, a pilgrim, progressing for the super sticker. And then we've got Brian, I need verified in Discord. Okay, Brian, we'll take care of your verification in Discord in a second. Relax. And Sam coming in, reminding everyone if you're still watching to mount that like button. Thank you, Sam. We appreciate that. Well, Jennifer, I so appreciate having you on the channel. I know you've got to go really soon, but I just want to say, like, an interesting part of this for me that I did not expect, to be quite honest. I'm gonna be blunt. I was a little afraid of TERFs before this because sometimes you guys can come across as rather scary. And I say that as someone who I generally scare most people that I interact with on a daily basis. But I have to say, one of the unexpected parts of this is like the chat has been hopping. Everyone's been in a good mood. It feels like you guys are like really fun people to be around. And it's kind of changed my perception of TERFs a little bit. I have to be honest.
oh yeah, turfs are fun. They're rowdy and they're fun. I mean, when we go to these protests, we have a ball. I mean, I don't do things unless I'm having a good time. And I say, I bring myself wherever I go. So I'm a lot of fun. And anybody that wants to join our protests, we will welcome you with open arms. And
Yeah.
like
Let's get this one back up on the screen because you've got one coming up in a little under 2 weeks.
Yes. This is in New York. This is a group. I work with many different groups. This is a group on Twitter that we put together, and it's a Philly New York combo group. So we're going to focus on New York first, and then we're going to do a protest in Philly, and then I will be in Chicago for Memorial Day weekend. And then the funny thing that happened was, I'm from Chicago, so I keep up with what's going on in Chicago, and Lake Forest, no, not Lake County, not Lake Forest, Waukegan and Highland Hills. The library put out some horrible um kitty corner for Pride thing, and they're going to have drag queen story hour.
Of
They're
course
going to
they are.
um affirmation books, and and then drag queen dress up clothes, and the picture that they have is like a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh
um
my
so,
God.
so I happen to be going to Chicago to do a speakers corner, because that's another thing that I'll do is the speakers corner, just to get people together talk about this. And I mean, I did the speakers corner with Kara Dansky and Posey Parker, and we were on Breitbart. We did one in Madison, and that made the round. I mean, it has, you know, probably like 50,000 views. So it's not like nobody's seen, you know, these things. This is a ground up movement, a grassroots movement. And they have completely removed access to the media. So, but we are still getting our name out, you know, our message out there, and it's great. So, you know, if anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, which is RadFem Street Beat, I'm sorry, RadFem. I've gotten banned from Twitter. Street Beat, REVFEMSTBEAT. And you can follow me, and if you have any questions about getting a group of people together, doing a protest, if you need help with that first one, that is really where I'm, you know, putting most of my energy, is to get people to get out there. I also, if you want to start an organization, I will help you with that. I have resources to help you with that. Part of my, if I have like my RadFem dream, is to do an accelerator with various groups, like, you know, various groups that I believe in: anti-porn, you know, anti-surrogacy, keep prison single sex, all those. I would love to start organizations and help people start organizations, that so we can grow this. Because I mean, they have, you know, National Organization for Women and UN Women and all the big organizations that we would normally rely on are captured. So we have to start new ones. And I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I'll help you.
I mean, there's freedom in starting new ones. You know, you got no bad apples that are going to ruin everything. You don't have to fix things that are already too far broken to ever have hope of being fixed. I think it's a good thing. You guys have got really good energy behind you. And you know what? It feels good. And this to me, I'm about to make a horrible comparison that might offend some people, but like this to me kind of feels like, it kind of feels like the MAGA movement in 2020 before the election, when everyone was in a good mood and united around some sort of common goal. You know, not necessarily with the politics, but with that like feeling, and that's something that's infectious. So I think it's great. So Jennifer, I want to thank you for coming on the channel. Do you have any other plugs you want to make? And guys, just so you know, Jennifer's Twitter and all the other links are in the description below on all the channels. So make sure you're following her there. Anything else you'd like to say before we conclude?
No, I just wanted to say I'm feeling the same energy. I'm feeling like, you know, the love, and just like a chill, and we can do this, and we're powerful, and we are the people. We are the people, you know, and I'm so grateful for you inviting me, especially to your first TERF Tuesday.
Hopefully the first of many TERF Tuesdays. I want to have all the TERFs on. This is fun. We can do a whole panel of TERFs someday. I think it'll be great.
Oh yeah, you've got to have, you know, Kara Dansky and Amy Souza, and you've got to have. If you need any help finding TERFs, I will be your resource.
Excellent. I will take you up on that. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for joining me today. I'm going to put you off the screen and kind of wrap things up, but we definitely appreciate you. Guys, I've just got a couple more super chats to do. Emphasize says, my super chat moderator isn't a TERF. No, I am not a TERF, but who knows? I might become a TERF at some point if I keep doing these here conversations. We've got a couple more. Emphasize, splash, splash, women wipe the toilet seat. Well, you know, I'm not going to make any Emphasize, you're causing too many problems today in the chat. I mean, you're paying me for it, so I guess it's okay. Salvert says, great conversation. Imagine if everyone's individual consciousness could tandem as well as this. I totally agree, Savrets. And then Incognito, we've got great conversation as always. Your glorious cult leader, which is me, now officially verified as a cult leader by 7 days in Vermont. So that's pretty great. Well, guys, that's all we have for this stream. But as always, this is Tuesday, and that means that this is not my last stream today. It's just my first stream today. I will be coming back in about 2.5 hours for Nothing Remotely Controversial with Joshua. If you've never watched Nothing Remotely Controversial, it's a little bit different. We talk about the news, and then Joshua, who is a professional psychic, tries to predict what's going to happen in this crazy world using tarot cards and astrology, and we have a great time. And even if you don't believe in psychics, it's an awful lot of fun. And you know, Joshua's pretty hot, so whether you're a gay man or a woman, you can at least look at him if you aren't at all being entertained by that. Guys, again, please make sure, if you have not yet, pick up a copy of my book. It's the first day, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life. Fun fact, I do have a whole chapter on fighting back in the schools, and you can use the techniques both for CRT and also for gender ideology. So it's a versatile set of techniques explained in the book, highly practical and actionable strategies. And if you want to head over to activelyunwoke.com, you can find options to order it on both Amazon and non-Amazon for those of you who don't want to give Jeff Bezos your money. All right, guys, Emphasize got one more. Emphasize got to get the last word today. My super chat moderator at YouTube isn't a TERF. Well, for the moment anyway. All right, guys, that's all I've got for right now. Again, I will be back in about 2.5 hours, so make sure you join us tonight. Please mount that like button on the way out the door. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Take care, and we'll see you soon.